Welcome to today's webinar, What's New in Shipping Solutions Export Software. I'm Lisa Niemer. I have been with Shipping Solutions for a long time, so if you've ever had a question or an issue with Shipping Solutions, you've probably talked to me. So I'll be walking through the changes in Shipping Solutions Professional and Enterprise version 9.20 and Shipping Solutions Classic version 8.20. And I wanted to point out on our website where you can find this list. So if you just go here under Export Documentation Software and then go to Support and then scroll down, and there's a lot of good stuff on this screen. If you scroll down to Release History, this is where you will see all the different versions, and I believe David's going to put the link in the chat. But if you click on this one for version 9.20, you will see the changes here, and then if you just keep scrolling, you'll see the changes earlier for 919, 918, etc. If you just keep scrolling down. So I'm going to go over all these changes in 9.20, and they're the same in version 8.20 Classic, except there's a couple of things that aren't in Classic that I will mention as I go through it. So you can follow along, although I'm not going to go in exactly this order, but it'll be pretty close. You can see here is the version number. This is version 9.20.0. And I've logged in. So the first change that I want to tell you about is the updates to the IATA Shipper's Declaration of Dangerous Goods. And the changes made to that document took effect on January 1st. And so if we just take a look at that, now this is our list of documents. It's very long. And so I'll be throwing in little things as we go here that I tell people when I talk to them, but hopefully you all know about this filter button. If you click the filter button, you can uncheck the documents that you never use so that you can look at a much longer, shorter list when you go to the preview print email button. But I have all of them displayed here. And here's our IATA Dangerous Goods document. If I preview it, I'll just point out the changes. So one change was right here in this column heading where it says class or division, and it used to say subsidiary risk, and now it says subsidiary hazard. That was a change. Also down here, it used to say name and title of signatory. Now it just says name, and it used to say date and place, and now it just says date. So the other change we made was we used to have a heading here for 24-hour contact phone number. We took that off unless you have it filled in. So if you have filled it in, if I close this screen and I go down here to Dangerous Goods, IATA, if you have filled in the number here, it will still show up on the document. But it was a little bit unclear as to whether it was supposed to be on there or not, so we didn't want to take it off for everyone. So if you have it in there, it'll show up if you've entered one, but if you don't enter one, then this red heading does not show up. So fairly minor changes, but they are required by IATA. So you do need to install the new update if you do use these IATA Dangerous Goods documents. Now, I just want to point out too, we have a couple other ones. We have this IATA data only, and we have IATA no red border. So that's if you like to use pieces of paper that have the whole form on it or without that already have the red border put on. And then we also have this no columns version. This one looks like this. And so instead of having the columns here for your line items, it just puts it like that. And both of them are required, or not required, accepted by IATA. And you'll notice here on the new version, it says subsidiary hazard instead of subsidiary risk. We also have that one with data only and that one with no red borders. Now, I have talked to a couple of people who said, well, my document didn't change and I did the upgrade. Well, they were using the Dangerous Goods documents that say legacy next to them. So if you're using those are pretty old. We kind of moved away from those documents a number of years ago. So give me a call or send me an email, and I can show you the new way that we do it. We also have, I'll bring up our website again. If you go here to videos and you go to creating dangerous goods documents, this video walks you through the newer way that we do it, so that you don't use those legacy documents, because those are not going to be updated. All right, the next one that next document that changed, and this one is the SLI in NCB FAA format. It's not like a required document, the format itself, but the model provided by the National Customs Broker Association did change, so we made those changes on here. So just pointing out a couple of the changes. It now says authorized agent up here in the upper right instead of freight forwarder. And also down here in the checkbox where you're authorizing someone to act as your agent, it says authorized agent where it used to say freight forwarder. We also made these two fields, filing option and transportation reference number, optional. Filing option, almost every single company is pre-departure, so it's kind of redundant to put it on here. And transportation reference number, some people don't use it. So you do have the option to hide those. And I'm going to show you a couple of versions ago. We added the functionality that if you're on this preview print email screen and you just right click on the document, you can get right to the customized screen. And each of these customized screen for each document is a little different. So on this one, you can uncheck show filing option and uncheck transportation reference number. And you can just preview it from here, and we'll see that those two boxes now don't display. Okay, and that shortcut is kind of nice, I think, because before, if you wanted to make a change, you had to go over to the Tools tab, Customize Documents tree, and find your document and then make the changes. So right now, you know, when you're right on the preview print email screen, you can just right click on your document and get right to the customized screen. Okay, the next change that we made, I'm just going to pick a different shipment here. The Canada Customs invoice, we always had a continuation page on it, but now we made it so that it matches the one that is provided by the Canadian government. So I'll just show you what that looks like. It's very similar to the one we used to have, but you know, a little different. So it's got the flag now, and it's got lines around these boxes and some other changes. So now if your Canada Customs invoice goes to a second page, you're going to have the continuation page that Canada Customs wants to see. The next thing that we did was we added a new pro forma invoice. So if I scroll down to pro forma invoice, here's the regular one that we've always had. We have one in French and one in Spanish. And then the new one we added is called landscape. So we call it landscape, obviously, because it's landscape, but what it has is it has more boxes for contact types. The regular pro forma just has 3 boxes: exporter, ultimate consignee, and then either intermediate consignee or bill to. You can switch it back and forth. So this one puts both intermediate consignee and bill to on here, plus freight forwarder and notified party. It also has weights by line item. So it brings over each line item's weight and shows it next to the item and totals them down here. So that's our new pro forma invoice. We already had that in the commercial invoice. We have the landscape version of the commercial invoice. We did that a few versions ago, so hopefully you're making use of that if you want to have this additional detail. So now we just have a pro forma to look that kind of matches that one we did for the commercial. I don't remember if I mentioned when I was talking about dangerous goods that is professional and enterprise only. That is not in the classic version. And then this next change that I'm going to talk about is also in professional and enterprise only, not classic. So it pertains to the export compliance module. When you're typing in your Ukrainian customer, you have to put in a state code. You know, there's a war there. So some of the provinces there are okay to ship to, and some of them aren't. We added the state code. The state codes are outlined on the blog post, so you'll have to look up the grid. And here, I can actually just show it to you as well. So I'm going to go on our homepage here. I'm going to search for Ukraine. And here's the blog post that I wrote. And it's got a chart here. So you're going to have to look up this code for this state that you're shipping to. In this case, I'm shipping to Kyiv, state code 30. So if I save and close this, and I go to the compliance screen and I run restricted party screenings, for my ultimate consignee, I'm going to get no match found. And for those of you who haven't noticed this before, we have these two little drop-down screen, or this is a drop-down screen that we added a couple of versions ago. So you can review, approve, or deny. And I'm going to approve this shipment because no match found. So then I'm going to close this, and I'm going to pick a shipment where I put in a different address. In this example, I am shipping to Donetska, state code 14, that I got off of my chart. And when I run it, now you're going to see embargo, US. So you can't ship to that particular state in Ukraine. And so I'm going to go up here and I'm going to deny this one. And if I go here and look at my select shipment screen, there's a way to add these two columns if you're interested in that, where you can see if there were results and what the review status is. And then you would just go to global settings. So the question that I had was, when I went to preview print email and I right-clicked and went to customize, whether that's just for this shipment or all shipments. So this customized screen is going to do this for all shipments. But what it's not going to do is do it for all users. So if you have the multi-user version and you have a few different people logging in with their own logins into Shipping Solutions, when you customize something, it's only going to pertain to them, and you would have to do it for your other users as well to have the change take effect across your whole company. The next thing we did has to do with the packing list, and this came from feedback from customers that said we weren't allowing for enough precision in those numbers. So if I go to the packing list screen, these dimensions are in inches, and it used to be you could just put in the 18 and not the .456, .789, etc. So now you can have, I think, as many decimals as you want, or maybe up to 5. It's going to make it a lot more precise, especially when it's converting it to metric system as well. And you also can customize how much displays on the document. So I've entered 3 decimals here, but maybe when I go to my packing list document, now it's showing it. So and so centimeters, when it converts to centimeters, it's much more precise than when you were only able to put in 2, without any decimal. So, but maybe I don't want to display that many. So I can again right-click, customize, and down here, your decimals on centimeters can be changed so that you can have up to 5. And you can do that on some of the other measurements as well. So if I go ahead and preview it now, so now it's down to 2. Okay, so that's just making the packing list a lot more precise. Moving off of the Easy Start screen and going to the Databases tab, we added something onto the products database. And this is also from feedback from customers, because if you keep your list of products in Shipping Solutions, people were asking for a way to be able to note when they had reviewed it and updated it. Maybe for pricing changes, or maybe for a big one would be the Schedule B code. When was that last reviewed, to make sure that was correct. So we added these 2 new fields, last updated date, so you can put a date in there, and then notes. And you can see how this box really gets bigger. So I think it's just to make it easier to read. If you have a lot of notes in there, when you hover over it, it gets big so you can read it. So that helps you. You can consider that part of your export compliance plan, because you're going through and making sure your Schedule B codes or your ECCNs or whatever are updated, and you can make note when you did that. One thing that I can't really demonstrate, but I will mention, is that we updated what version of Crystal Reports we're using with Shipping Solutions. So all of our documents are generated using Crystal Reports. We updated it to version 13.0.32. We had talked to some customers who have other programs that use Crystal Reports, and because of the older version of Crystal Reports we were using, it was conflicting with their other program. So hopefully now having a newer version of Crystal Reports will help that. Another thing that users asked for is when I go to the admin tab user accounts screen. We have some customers who've been using Shipping Solutions a long time and have a lot of users, so this list of users gets really long. So right now you can export your list of users to Excel, and then you can take a look at it and be able to see all in one place who your users are, and then you can modify the list, make it easier to look at the list. So it shows what group they're in, what their profile is, and their name. Another thing that we did regarding user accounts is, if I go over to Easy Start again, if I go to this shipment summary screen down here, some of you maybe have never clicked on this before, but we added at the very bottom here the shipment creator. So this one's just admin, but if you have different users, you'll be able to see whoever's logged into the software. That will be the name that's shown here. There's a lot of other information on here that you might find useful. Just know that it's there for your shipments. And then of course the change shipment options, there's certain things you can change. So you can change the shipment number, you can change the profile that the shipment is under. So if it was created under a default profile but you want it now under a different profile, you can change it here, and then you just hit update shipment. So that's this little box down here. So another thing that we added was over here on the Utilities tab, there's a Generate Reports screen that you may or may not have ever come to. We have some list of like pre-made reports up here, and all you have to do is put in your date range. So you have 3 choices of dates to pick from, and then you can pick a date range, and then you can look at any of these reports. Well, we can look at this one because this is what I'm going to talk about. So this will show the screenings that have been run for each shipment and the date that they were run and who ran them. So this is kind of another thing for your export compliance program that you can use. But if you want to have more detail, we have this section down here that lets you dump data into Excel so that you can slice and dice it more. And so you click Manage Excel Reports, and then you can add a new one. I added one called Screening Report. And then you can just click the fields that you want to include on the report. And what I want to point out is that we have added now the screening date, that's restricted party screening date. If you ran export license determination, the date for that, and document determination, and then the shipment creator. These are all new fields for this report, running reports here. So I'm going to just run this report. So you pick it in the drop-down list, and then you export it to Excel, and then you will see your list of shipments, and then it'll give you the date that the screenings were run. You can make these columns a little wider so you can see it a little better. So that's just an enhancement to that Generate Reports feature. And then just some little fixes. I'm just going to select a different shipment here. For some odd reason, we were missing some page numbers. So like if you were looking at the Australia Free Trade Agreement Certificate of Origin, we didn't have a page number right here, page 1 of 2. We had the page number here, page 2 of 2, but we didn't have page 1 of 2. So that was on the top of the Australia, Colombia, and Korea Free Trade Agreement Certificates of Origin. So that's just a little thing. And then the last thing I'll mention is that we added some codes. So, codes are always changing. We added some license types, so you would see those when you're on the product details screen here, the license types. So there were 2 new ones that were added, C69 and C70. So we added those to the list. And we don't take off any of them, but if they're no longer valid, we put discontinued on here, used for amendments only. So you might want to look at the license types you're using, make sure they're not discontinued. But C69 is license exception medical devices, C70 implemented export control. We also updated some ITAR exemptions. If we go to this screen, this section up here is all the DDTC stuff. And so we added an exemption number. I think it's the very bottom one is new. And then we also updated these category codes. They should be in the same order and use basically the same language as the ASTER. If you're familiar with that, that's Appendix L. That's the AES filing. They call it the ASTER, so that matches Appendix L now. And then we also updated some ports. Now, if you look here, if you go to carriers and ports, foreign port codes, this list is pre-populated and we have updated it. There were a couple of new ones, a few in Vietnam that were added. But if you ever find a port code that isn't here, you can always just add it yourself. There's an add new right here. So you're able to add that if it's missing. So that is the extent of the changes. Are there any questions? Okay, the question is, if I make changes to the database, does that affect existing shipments or older shipments? So if I remove ABC Company as an ultimate consignee that we no longer do business with, will I see it on older orders? That will work fine, because if you're on this databases tab and you go in here to contacts and then you go to ultimate consignees, if you delete somebody here, that will not impact anything on the Easy Start screen. So like when you're creating a shipment, you're pulling data from the databases into Easy Start, but once you've pulled it in, now it's on the Easy Start screen and it's not going to go anywhere based on what you do to the databases tab. So that's also like where if you change a price in the products database, it's not going to go back and change prices on any of your existing shipments on Easy Start. We have seen more delays getting through Canada Customs. Will these new changes possibly help? I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that. I guess if they didn't like your continuation page, maybe that would help. But I guess I don't really know, and I don't know if David has anything to add to that. The next question is, are there any changes to the matching results in terms of why some show as 100% when they should not? No, I mean, our compliance module is powered by E2 Open, so we do not control the data that we're screening against. It's good though, because you're getting the benefits of a much bigger company. They've got a huge team that manages the lists that we're running our compliance module against. So you're getting changes added within 24 hours of any change. So that's good. But we don't control that algorithm. Sometimes it is hard to explain why something is 100% match. I mean, what I usually tell people is like, you need to put in as much information as you have. If you put in something that's like global company, it's going to have, that's just not specific enough. There's also a lot of words that it doesn't even use for screening. So if it's like ABC Company, or, it's not going to look at the word company. So it's only going to look at ABC. So you're only screening on 3 letters. You know what I'm saying? So as much information as you have about a potential partner is what you should enter. And then you have to look at the results. I mean, I always say it's an art, not a science. You have to just use common sense, I guess, and maybe do additional research. First of all, I always say, like, you should have maybe a threshold of maybe you're not going to worry about any matches that are below a certain number, whatever that number is for your company. That makes sense. Like match percentage. And then you also need to look at what lists they're on. If they're on lists that aren't US lists, then you could disregard those results. If it is a US list, you might want to do further research if it looks like it could be a potential match. So it's a tool that does help you screen against those lists, but it's certainly not a perfect science. Okay, so someone wanted me to go over the packing list again. Sure. So I went to the packing list screen, and the only change that we made here was that now you can enter the inches up here in the dimensions boxes with decimal places. And let's see how many you can put in. So you can put in as many as you want, it looks like. But when you show it on the document, it's only going to show, well, and it rounded to 5 here, and it's only going to show up to 5. But just being able to put in the decimals makes it so much more accurate when you are converting it to centimeters. So if we look at the packing list once again, you can see it rounds to 2, and so, but it's calculating based on that number that you entered. So even though it's rounding to 2, the calculation is using the 5-digit precision. And also you can right click here, customize, and then you can say how many decimals that you want to display on the document. So that was that change. Also, I want to mention we also have this landscape version of the packing list. And if you haven't looked at it before, this one also adds weights, gross and net, pounds and kilograms to each line item. So if you're looking for more detail on your packing list, you might want to look at the landscape version. I know saying it's a landscape version isn't very specific, but basically what that means is it has more data than the other one, because being landscape, there's more space. And of course, don't hesitate to reach out, call, email, and we're happy to answer questions anytime, and also to take any feedback on what you would like to see. Some of our best ideas come from our customers. So we always want to get your ideas and your feedback. All right, well, I don't see any more questions, but I think you guys know how to reach me. My direct phone number is 651-272-2701, and you can always reach me via email, Lisa N, as in Nancy, @shipsolutions.com. So thank you so much, and have a great day.